Hare Krishna, devotees, Pradnya. Now we will read Srila Prabhupada lilamrita. Sichas Minachanayam Chitat Srila Prabhupada lilamrita. Okay. First of all, some prayers. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharne Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Shatarne Sri Krishna Caitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Right, so devotees, we are still in the fourth volume of Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita. We're still in chapter 30, although we are coming to the end of chapter 30, and we'll soon be in chapter 31. Okay, so last night, yes, right, we were reading, George Harrison was talking about his writing the foreword for the Krishna books. And we're about to go into, I mean, it's all very interesting, but an interesting section. When Srila Prabhupada asked to watch the moon landing, the devotees rented a television and placed it in Prabhupada's living room. Prabhupada took his massage as usual, sitting in a chair before the television. This is in Prabhupada's flat in Baker Street. Baker Street is kind of not far from the very center, but just slightly out. Right. Purushottam announced, well, Prabhupada, it's about time. So I'll turn on the television and soon we'll be getting some pictures from the astronauts out in space. A reporter was speaking from Cape Canaveral, Florida. We are just about to get the first pictures of this historic occasion. The picture appeared fuzzy, then cleared. The spacecraft had landed on the moon. As the astronauts emerged from the ship, they slowly eased themselves down onto the moon's surface. Purushottam was in ecstasy. Dhananjaya, my distant cousin. I was attempting to massage Prabhupada's head and at the same time watch the program. All of a sudden, as the men were landing, Prabhupada motioned for me to sit in front of him. He was sitting behind because Prabhupada's watching. Prabhupada said to come and sit in front. So I came around. As soon as I sat down, Prabhupada started to massage my head. I was quite embarrassed. "You've forgotten how to massage properly?" he asked. "This is how you do it." He massaged my head for about 2 minutes. Then I stood behind Prabhupada and again began massaging his head. By this time, the astronauts were moving across the landscape. They had gotten out their little American flag and were sticking it in the ground and were jumping up and down. Apparently, they were defying gravity, because every time they jumped up, they would float through the air and then gently land again. There was a lot of jubilation and sounds from them. "So, Purushottam," Prabhupada asked, "they have come to the moon?" "Yes, Prabhupada," Purushottam said excitedly. "They've landed on the moon." Prabhupada smiled. Dhananjaya. Again, Prabhupada motioned me to the front. I moved around and sat down. I thought he wanted me to massage him from the front, but again he put his hands on my head and massaged. He said, "Can't you learn this simple thing, massaging my head?" I had been watching the television and not giving my full attention to my service. Well, this is what happens, just as a little comment. Whatever it is in Krishna consciousness, if we become inattentive and we're doing it, whatever it is, but actually our attention is elsewhere, then our sort of performance in whatever it is will not be up to standard. Yes. And it'll be detectably not up to standard. And someone who's tuned in will be able to tell. So, right. I tried again, but again Prabhupada said, "You still don't know how to do this." I said, "Well, Prabhupada, I'm trying my hardest." He laughed and said, "That is all right, continue." Prabhupada asked Purushottam, "So, what can you see?" "They're exploring the moon's surface," he said. "So what is there?" "Well, it looks like they've landed inside a crater somewhere, and the ground is sandy with some rocks. Oh, look, they're showing some shadows from some of the rocks that are lying around." "That's all you can see? There are no people? There are no trees? There are no rivers? There are no buildings?" "No," Purushottam replied, "the moon is barren." "They have not landed on the moon," Prabhupada said emphatically. "This is not the moon." Later, when Malati brought in Prabhupada's lunch, he said, "What Malati has done, she has made this little kitchari for Krishna, and that is far greater than what they have done." Even though Prabhupada's quarters were incomplete and temple renovation made Seven-Berry Place noisy and hectic, Prabhupada decided to move in. "I am not attached to a comfortable apartment," he said. "My attachment is to living in the association of devotees." He was moving into the temple at a time when the record sales were low and the devotees were having to purchase supplies piecemeal whenever they got money. Yet with Prabhupada living with them and supervising their work, they were satisfied. Because that's what happens with these records. They're doing thousands a day, and after a while, not too long a while, it comes down to actually selling nothing eventually. Tamal Krishna arrived from Los Angeles, and in addition to supervising much of the construction, he began taking the devotees out daily to chant on the streets and sell Back to Godhead magazines. Yamuna was sewing curtains from morning until night. Ishan, Shamsundar, and others were working every possible hour on the renovation. And every day, Prabhupada would walk through the building to see the progress. With only 1 week left until the opening, Shamsundar still labored on the temple ceiling. He had not even begun the altar. Again, the other devotees complained to Prabhupada that Shamsundar was too slow. But Prabhupada replied, he wants to make it artistic. Let him do it. Shamsundar, this time on his own, asked George for a donation for an altar. George gave 2,000 pounds, and Shamsundar picked out a slab of golden sienna marble and 2 slabs of red marble. Although Prabhupada had a pair of 17-inch carved wood deities of Radha and Krishna, he didn't plan to use them. And the size of the altar Shamsundar was building clearly required larger deities. One day, a Mr. Doyle phoned, representing a large London Hindu society. He had heard the devotees wanted Radha Krishna deities, and he had a pair he would donate. When Prabhupada heard the news, he sent Tamal Krishna, Mukunda, and Shamsundar to Mr. Doyle's home to see the deities. Radha and Krishna were white marble and stood about 3 feet high. Never before had the devotees seen such large deities, and they offered obeisances. When they returned to the temple and told Prabhupada, he said, "Take me there at once." Srila Prabhupada, accompanied by Shamsundar, Mukunda, and Tamal Krishna, arrived by van at Mr. Doyle's home. Prabhupada entered the living room and sat down. The deities, covered by a cloth, stood on a table in the corner. Tamal Krishna was about to unveil them when Prabhupada checked him. "No, that's all right." Prabhupada sat and spoke with Mr. Doyle, asking him about his work and where he had come from in India. and he met Mr. Doyle's family. Prabhupada and his host chatted while the devotees listened. "Swamiji," Mr. Doyle said at length, "I want to show you my deities." "Yes," Prabhupada replied, "I will see them after some time." Prabhupada began to speak about his Krishna consciousness mission, and after a while Mr. Doyle again requested, "Please take a look at these deities." And with that he walked over and unveiled Radha and Krishna. "Oh yes," Prabhupada said, folding his hands respectfully. Mr. Doyle explained that he had ordered the deities from India for his own use, but in transit, a tiny piece of Radharani's finger had chipped off. Therefore, according to Hindu tradition, the deities could not be installed. "Tamal Krishna," Prabhupada said, See how heavy these deities are. Tamal Krishna, placing one hand at Radharani's base and the other around her shoulder, lifted her. Not so heavy, he said. Shamsundar, Prabhupada said, see how heavy is Krishna. The deities were actually heavy for one man to carry, but the devotees understood Prabhupada's intention. Not bad, Shamsundar said, holding Krishna a few inches off the table. Yes, Prabhupada said conclusively, I think they're all right. Let us take them. We have our van. And suddenly Prabhupada was leaving with his disciples following, carefully carrying Radha and Krishna. Prabhupada thanked Mr. Doyle. But Swamiji, protested Mr. Doyle, who was not prepared for the sudden exit. Please, we will arrange to bring them. Our society will bring them. But Prabhupada was already out the door and leading his men to the van. Please wait, Mr. Doyle persisted. We have to fix them first, then you can take them. We have an expert man, Prabhupada said. He can fix these things. Prabhupada was assuring Mr. Doyle and at the same time directing his disciples. He opened the door of the van and Shamsundar and Tamal Krishna slowly entered, cautiously setting Radha and Krishna within. Tamal Krishna knelt in the back to hold the deities secure, while Shamsundar got into the driver's seat. Now drive, Prabhupada said. And off they went, with Prabhupada smiling from the window to Mr. Doyle and his family, who stood together on the curb. Shamsundar had driven but a few blocks when Prabhupada asked him to stop the van. Turning around in his seat, Prabhupada began offering prayers. Govindam Adipurusham, Tamaham Bhajami. He looked long at Krishna, who was white with a slight bluish cast, and at the exquisite white Radharani by his side. Krishna is so kind, he said. He has come like this. Then he had Shamsundar continue driving slowly back to the temple. Carefully, Prabhupada supervised his disciples carrying the deities up to the second floor. The devotees were astounded and delighted to see Prabhupada in such an animated and intense state, bringing Radha and Krishna into their temple. He had the deities placed in a curtained-off section of his own room, and then he sat at his desk. Prabhupada smiled. Krishna has played a great trick. In the Mahabharata also, he said, there are incidents where Krishna plays tricks. One such trick was Krishna's agreeing to be on the side of the general he saw first in the morning. The two opposing generals, Arjuna and Duryodhana, had both come in Krishna's tent early in the morning as Krishna slept. They had agreed that one of them would stand at Krishna's head and the other at Krishna's feet, and that they would wait until Krishna awoke. Duryodhana chose to stand by Krishna's head, while Arjuna chose his feet. Krishna awoke and saw Arjuna. Okay, because Krishna's lying on his back, and when he wakes up, first thing he just lifts his head and looks down his body, and there's Arjuna at his feet. And Duryodhana's back here. So when Krishna lifts up his head, doesn't see Duryodhana. So, of course, Duryodhana thought he'd lost out completely, because the choice was, first one who sees Krishna in the morning can choose either to have his army, Krishna's army, on their side, and who will fight, or to have Krishna on their side, but he will not fight. So Duryodhana's assuming Arjuna's just immediately going to say, yes, I'll take Krishna's army to fight, and you can take Krishna and he'll do nothing. That was one great trick that was played by Krishna, Prabhupada said. Similarly, this is a great trick. And then, so Arjuna gets the choice. But he immediately chose Krishna, even though Krishna wouldn't fight. And Duryodhana thought, wow, that's wonderful for me. He told how Krishna had also tricked Mother Yashoda. When she had tried to discipline Krishna, he had run away and she had run after him, caught him, and tried to tie him with ropes. But every time she came with more rope, Prabhupada said, it was just a little too short. Krishna can play any kind of trick. Another such trick has been played. Another such trick has been played. They made so much effort to bring these deities here, thinking they will be for their Hindu center. But all the time Krishna wanted to come here. So this chip on the deity's hand is just Krishna's trick, and we have caught them. Prabhupada, Mukunda said, you kidnapped Krishna. Yes, Prabhupada said. Once I was in the bank and the manager had some scheme, but I foiled his scheme. So he said to me, Mr. Day, you should have been a politician. Prabhupada laughed. Then he became grave and asked the devotees not to talk about the incident. Many people would not understand how he could install a chipped deity. The devotees agreed to keep the secret, but they had no doubt that Prabhupada's love for Krishna was transcendental to Hindu customs. Radha and Krishna had come to London on Prabhupada's desire. How do you dress big deities like this? Yamuna asked. They already have clothes on. Yeah, Radha Landanishwara, they have clothes already, They've been carved with the clothes carved in. Prabhupada said, you bring me some cloth. What kind of cloth, Prabhupada? What should the clothes look like? Like in the pictures, he replied. Well, there are so many different pictures, she said. Sometimes Krishna has a ruffled skirt on, and sometimes he has a dhoti on, and sometimes he has a big crown on. Krishna looks very beautiful in saffron, Prabhupada said. So you bring me some silk dhotis in yellow and saffron color. Yamuna collected 6 silk saris with silver and gold borders, and Prabhupada indicated the design he wanted and told Yamuna how to arrange the crowns. With only a few days remaining before the installation ceremony, Yamuna began working almost continuously at her sewing machine. Several times a day, Prabhupada would come to see her progress. Shamsundar had completed most of the altar, except for Lord Jagannath's altar and the canopy over Radha and Krishna's throne. Both the canopy and Lord Jagannath's altar would be supported by 4 heavy wooden columns, more than 6 feet high. I mean, definitely more. I was there. Jagannath was up, maybe not quite as high as the ceiling, but higher than the height of the door. The Jagannath deities were up there, directly over Radha and Krishna. And they used to dress them on a ladder. Okay. Two rear columns would hold a marble slab for the Jagannath deities to stand on, and 2 front columns were now supporting Radha and Krishna's large velvet canopy. The columns were big and heavy. Shamsundar called them elephant leg columns. The columns now stood in place on the altar, although Shamsundar hadn't had a chance to secure them. The day before the installation, Shamsundar collapsed upstairs in exhaustion. On opening day, many guests, Indians especially, crowded the temple, responding to flyers and advertisements. Apple Records had supplied a professional florist who had decorated the room with floral arrangements. A BBC television crew was on hand to videotape the ceremony. While most of the devotees held kirtan, Prabhupada, behind a curtain at the other end of the temple, bathed Radha and Krishna. The plan was that after the bathing ceremony, the deities would be placed on the altar and Yamuna would dress them. Once they were dressed and enthroned, the curtain would open for all the guests to behold Sri Sri Radha and Krishna. Prabhupada would lecture, and then everyone would feast. But because of Shamsundar's oversight, the installation almost became a disaster. Prabhupada had finished bathing the deities, and they had been placed on the marble altar, when suddenly the quote-unquote elephant leg columns tottered. The canopy above the deities began to collapse. Prabhupada, seeing the danger, jumped onto the altar and seized the heavy columns in a split second. With great strength, he held the 2 front pillars in place. "Get this out of here," he shouted, while Prabhupada's arms protected the deities. The men removed the canopy, and then 2 men at a time carried each of the pillars away. The deities remained unharmed. While Prabhupada was behind the curtain rescuing Radha and Krishna, on the other side of the curtain, guests and reporters awaited the unveiling of the deities. Unaware of the mishap, the guests saw only men emerging from behind the curtain, carrying large pillars and a canopy. The BBC camera crew began filming the canopy and pillars as they appeared from behind the curtain, taking them to be part of a ceremonial procession. The few devotees behind the curtain with Prabhupada were amazed. But there was no time now for apologies or appreciations. Yamuna dressed the deities, Prabhupada hurrying her. When at last everything was ready, Prabhupada opened the main curtain, revealing the graceful forms of Lord Krishna and Radharani, to the temple full of guests, a devotee began to offer arti, while Prabhupada, wearing a saffron chadar and a garland of carnations, stood to one side, reverentially looking upon Radha and Krishna as their worshipper and protector. This was the culmination of months of effort. Actually, years of planning had preceded this auspicious occasion. 100 years before, Bhaktivinoda Thakur had hoped for the day when Krishna consciousness would come to England, and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati had also desired it. Now that an authorized temple of Radha and Krishna was preaching Krishna consciousness in London, it was a historic occasion for Gaudiya Vaishnavism. A long-standing order of the previous acharyas had been fulfilled. Prabhupada had sent invitations to several of his godbrothers in India. None of them had been able to come, of course, but at least they should have been pleased to learn that this dream of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati's had been fulfilled. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Any comments or questions? Comments? Swarup Damodar Prabhu? Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you. Oh, yeah.